be able to call games this year, and got a couple of the Colts games, which was fun to connect with some of the guys I was with a season ago, and I really enjoyed it. I had a blast doing it. It was a lot of fun.
What did you think when you saw some of these quarterbacks go down early in the season? Were you like, hey, I can get the arm loose in a second here?
I was pretty comfortable, in the booth, and it was a wild year, though. It really was. From the quarterback standpoint, it was a wild year with all of the injuries, and so there was maybe a minute where you're like, I don't know, I think I can still spin it, but happy with the decision I made and excited to be here this week covering.
So many rules over the years to try to protect quarterbacks. Was this just a fluky year when you saw so many out for the season?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I think the rule changes have been good. Protecting, the position that most people are most fired up to go watch, right? You want to keep your stars on the field, but it was fluky this year, and a lot of them non-contact too. And so, hopefully, I know the NFL every year continues to look at ways to make the game safer, et cetera. Hopefully they can figure that out, because you want your best players on the field all the time.
Last thing for me, you have a matchup here. You got a first-round pick. You got a Mr. Irrelevant. You know what it's like. High draft picks, some have some success like yourself, and some come from out of nowhere. Is that an intriguing aspect of this game?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the path and how you get there doesn't matter, right? It's about arriving there. And everybody's road to it is different. I've been incredibly impressed with Brock Purdy the last 2 years, and coming in, he's really poised. Just seems unflappable. And then Patrick Mahomes he's kind of been the new Tom Brady type of player that's dominated the league, just finds ways to win. I think it's a really interesting matchup, and I think it's going to be a great game on Sunday.
Thanks for your time, brother. Take care.
Great to see you. Man. Yeah, Dan is an awesome coach, and I love my time with him in Atlanta. I think they're going to get somebody who's got great energy, day in and day out, really good energy. I think one of his greatest strengths is building the right culture. And in my opinion, that's what's needed in Washington. And I think he'll do an excellent job of that. I like the staff he's starting to put together. I think they'll be a team that's going to play hard. And that's kind of the hallmark of what he believes in. He knows how to motivate guys extremely well. And that was loud. But I'm happy for Dan. I really think, he deserved another opportunity as a head coach, and I think it's a really great fit in Washington.
Matt.
Yeah, I mean, it was my first time in the NFL when Dan came in, going through a coaching change, and with that, comes a shakeup in your routine, and it's different people in the building. You got all these new people, so it was the most turnover that I had ever felt. There was also a lot of turnover on our roster, and so it was me being in the same building for a long time, but it was a lot of different people and learning a new culture, a new way of doing things. But he made you comfortable really quickly, and I think that's one of his greatest strengths, is that he makes guys comfortable, free to be themselves, and free to play the way that they're capable of. And I'm pumped for him and Stacy.
Do you think now's the right time for him to get a second chance?
Dan? Quinn? Yeah, absolutely. I always, in my opinion, I always thought he would be a head coach again, and I thought he did a great job in Dallas. I know, there was criticism of the last playoff game, but if you look at his time and what they did on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, he showcased what kind of coach he is, right? And I'm not surprised at all that he's got another opportunity.
Matt, you played Lavonte David so many times. He's an old man. He's 34. He's still putting up numbers.
Yeah.
Why was he such a problem? What does he do? He presents such a problem.
He's not that old, 34.
For a linebacker.
I would love to be 34, and still playing. But I think what he does as a player, he's got incredible speed sideline to sideline, and he's got really good instinct, to whether it's in the run game, going up and fitting the run, covering you in the passing game. He's got incredible instincts, and he hasn't lost any of that speed. And I think that's, been the hallmark of his game, for a long time. And he must do an incredible job of taking care of himself, taking care of his body. He's been lucky to kind of avoid, serious injury that can sneak up on you. But I think it's his professionalism and his ability to still maintain the speed that he had that kind of keeps him going at 34 years old.
You called Broncos games at the beginning and the end of the season. What difference did you see in Russell Wilson? How the Broncos used him at the start of the year compared to later on, and then in Sean Payton talking about him at the start of the season?
Yeah, I mean, we had the Broncos before, Russ, before they moved on and decided to make a change. And at the times we had him, it seemed like the relationship was good, at least in the discussions that we had. And, Russ played some efficient football. I mean, there's no doubt about that at times. I think one of the hard things is, for Sean, having been around a guy like Drew Brees for a long time who played a particular style, it's a different style of play. It just didn't end up working out. But I thought Russ, he made the off-schedule plays, right, and was really good in the off-schedule, which he's really done his entire career. And I think with some of the other things that maybe weren't the right fit for the two of them together. But in the conversations that we had and the times we called it, it didn't seem as though it was headed in that direction.
If you were the Broncos and Sean Payton, how would you handle this quarterback question?
That's why I'm sitting here, right? These are hard, difficult decisions that you have to make. Russ can still play. I mean, there's, at least in my opinion, there's no doubt about that. Whether it's there or not remains to be seen. But I think Sean, just from the decision that they made towards the end of the season, I think it's a hard relationship to repair, between those two. And that level of trust just will never be the same if they decide to keep him.
Kyle's offense well, obviously. How is Brock elevated what maybe the Niners have been doing before?
Well, I think he's been incredibly consistent with his play week in and week out in what he does. Whether it was Trey or Jimmy, to me, they're more similar to when Jimmy was in there than when Trey, played for the little amount of time that he did. But I think, Kyle there's a lot of volume in what they do offensively in terms of the size of the plans and getting in and out of checks, getting them into the right plays. And to me, I think that's one of the underrated things that Brock has done really well, is handling all of the different checks and getting them into premier looks to run the football, to throw, the pass concepts that they want to use against certain coverages. It seems like, to me, from an outside perspective, he does that and navigates that really well, and it allows them to kind of use that full breadth of what Kyle wants to do, right? Like, he wants to attack the teams with certain plays versus certain coverages, or certain run schemes versus certain fronts. And I think Brock does an excellent job of getting them into the right stuff.
How impressive is it to be able to do that in year one, year two? Obviously, you were a lot more experienced when you got with Kyle, but for him to be able to do that so early in his career.
Yeah, I think it's very impressive, right? And to not have it slip into your play, right? The grind that it takes on you mentally to put all of this together. Sometimes if you spend, all of this time learning this, you start to lack in other areas, and I just haven't seen that, with Brock. I think his ability to handle that at a young age is impressive.
Where the eyes for a quarterback should go in that offense. Obviously, it's very hard to find out, but when you just watch Brock's head during his progressions, what do you see? What do you see with this processing skills?
Well, he's not overthinking. It's not cluttered. It's probably not the best way to describe it, but it's exactly. He's not cluttered in his thinking, right? It feels very free to me. Whether he's right or wrong, he's right, if that makes sense, because your eyes are in the right spot. So even if you screw up, but your eyes are in the right spot and it's not there, you can progress and move on. I think that's something that he does, extremely well.
Mr. Ryan, seeing how you're a guy whose first pass was a touchdown in the NFL. Right?
There we go.
Yeah. So with Brock Purdy, how do you feel about his ascent, where he's going right now in the NFL?
Yeah, I think, coming on to the scheme and playing the way that he has been really impressive. I think that he's taken strides, and certainly answered critics' questions, during this playoff stretch. Come from behind wins. What he did at the end of that game 2 weeks ago to put them in the Super Bowl. when those are the things you want to see. Like the play and the performance and his calm, all of that stuff has been really very good. But he's growing as a winner, and he's finding ways to get the job done. And I think that ultimately is what is important, right? Is finding ways to win, and certainly in these big games too. And I think he's made big strides in that department.